Do your intro if you want to do an intro.
Hey, I'm here today with
Steve Balshaw, who I'm a senior programmer at Grimmfest.
and
Duncan Gates. I'm the screenwriter of the short film No Caller ID.
and they're gonna tell us a little bit more about Grimmfest and about the No Caller ID film. So take it off.
Okay, I'm the senior programmer here at Grimmfest, and I've been working on the festival since it started. I mean, this is our 15th year, and we have a team of programmers. When I say I'm the senior programmer, I don't like to be called chief programmer because that suggests I'm in charge. I have seniority because I'm the eldest and I've been there the longest. But we select the films amongst ourselves, and this year, there was a specific remit because we've had guest directors this year, guest festival directors this year. So there's been a quite specific focus on female-centered horror, in keeping with festival directors' own aesthetic sensibilities and their own interest in the genre. So that's what we're doing this year. And I'm here with Duncan, who we were just talking a little about short films. So Duncan.
Yes, so I wrote a short story, posted it on Reddit many years ago, and the director, separately at Reddit, we'd never met before, and he contacted me about filming it, and that was completed earlier this year, and submitted it to Grimmfest, and they were kind enough to put it in their programme.
Wow, that actually sounds like a mix of a really cool discovery story and a horror story. I mean, he will either find you or just find you.
No. The way it was, he sent me a message through Reddit. He did not looked up my home address and came to visit me. That would be a very different example of the director-writer imbalance.
But also, it would have been a good story.
Yeah.
That's the sequel. Yes. We shall see what we do with that.
Yeah. So, but it's interesting talking to Duncan before, and what came out of it is that Duncan doesn't really come from a film background. He writes a short story, he gets picked up by a filmmaker, and it's a really great high concept idea insofar as it's all there in the 3 minutes.
Well, in a way, it's sort of like it's sort of like the way they sell you the American film industry. It's like you have a great idea, suddenly a great director picks it up, and you become famous overnight.
Rarely happens that way. What usually happens in the American film industry is the great executive steals your idea and you never hear of it again, and the next thing you see is it's on screen somewhere.
Exactly. Well, I said like that's how they sell it.
That's not what happens.
Actually the
No.
product.
The selling and the product is very different.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I did it with no expectation that such a thing would happen. I very much was, I think, like, well, it would be nice if someone out there, if it inspired someone out there. People seem to like it, and yes, he's done a terrific job of it. He's made some very good decisions that aren't in the original, and in a lot of ways he's kept very faithful to the original.
What was the inspiration for it? I mean, it looks like such a basic idea, but when you see about it, like nobody ever sort of like thought about that. What was your inspiration for it?
Well, I think it's. I think I got like interested in the helplessness of the guard. And actually, the idea that the situation in some very key ways is worse than if he was the person that they should have called in the first place, because then he can actually he can in theory influence events somehow. In this context, he can't. He can do nothing whatsoever. He doesn't have the information. If he tries to actually like address that or point out there's a mistake in any way, he will not be believed. And then, the sequence of events simply comes to an end. Spoilers, sorry. It simply comes to an end, and so what does he do with that? Well, the answer is he does nothing.
He can't.
Which actually is the most nightmarish thing about it. There's nothing he can do.
The flaws
and it's the helplessness.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like
Because even if he does manage to convince you've got the wrong person, that in itself won't end well.
No.
He's in a cleft stick. There's nothing he can do to influence that situation in any way whatsoever that will resolve it in a way that's not going to be bad.
And I found the interesting thing was the idea of the kind of the total lack of a resolution.
Yes,
like it's terrible narrative in many ways.
But you know what it made me think when I actually was watching it? It's something. It made me think, and it will sound a little bit weird. Have you ever read The Far Side comics?
I know of them. Yeah.
It's sort of like it made me feel that sort of thing where it's like the situation was left in a moment that is like so tenseful, but at the same way so stupid. It's like for one part, it's like my God, the kid is going for something horrible, but on the other side, it's like what's gonna happen when the people, the very nasty people behind it all, actually found out that the nasty guy, called the wrong person.
Yeah, exactly. That's another story altogether. There's several narratives happening in the background, which is why it's so interesting.
Yeah, and it's like a little bit of like, I suppose Breaking Bad influenced it to some extent, because there's a lot of bits in there that are like that. They're almost like people parachuting in from other shows that are their show, that are not the Walter White show.
Yeah.
And they're trying to get a thing done. They're trying to run a drugs empire in a sensible way. And there's this idiot who is just messing everything
randomly in there.
Yeah. And he ends up bringing me down by virtue of nothing other than not being part of the plan.
And not knowing what, there's that kind of not being party to what's going on can often be, the main spiral. Because there's a long tradition in horror and in thrillers, the wrong man narrative.
Yeah.
The wrong man narrative is that guy suddenly gets caught up in a thing that they have to resolve. There's a MacGuffin, someone has to find it, or you somehow accidentally.
There's a great quote from Half-Life that I think resumes that sentiment, which is the right man in the wrong time makes all the difference.
Sure.
I may be paraphrasing a little bit, but that's the sentiment. It's like the right man at the wrong time makes all the difference.
Or the wrong man at the right time. It doesn't make a difference. Either or works. But it's that thing. So many thrillers and horror movies too are about somebody getting caught up in a situation they can't control through no fault of their own.
Yeah.
And this takes that into a very, very recognisable environment of just working in an office and getting a random phone call.
I've got a job to do.
And also being in that thing of like, please leave me alone. Is this some kind of a hoax call? What is wrong? Because you have that thing. Having written stuff myself, I know this. That you have that thing. Somebody will ring you up, and you'll get some kind of random weird stuff will happen to you, and all you're thinking is, like, is this a prank? Like, Mickey, is this you, man? Did you, who did you get to make this call? It did such and such somebody put you on. You know what I mean? That kind of idea.
Got a lot on.
I'm not in the mood for this nonsense right now. Leave me alone.
It's like they call from the wrong job. It's like they're calling you and screaming, "Where are you? What the hell is going on here? What the hell are you? Hey, aren't you the?
They get mad at you for not knowing who they are, and
ex-
refusing to be part of the narrative that they are part of.
Yeah, because and he's in a situation where he's got nonsense coming down the pipeline at him about having not got this thing done for work, and all he's worrying about that, and then something else. This is just an interruption to him trying to get something done.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, no, this is because normally.
Can I call you back in half an hour?
Yeah,
I can't.
And that's it. The other interesting thing is like it also has like a little bit of that culture, sort of like culture, which like nobody can actually be wrong over a certain level. When you get over a certain level, it's like nobody is wrong. It's like everybody just moves on after the fact, and it's like. He's not gonna admit he's wrong, even if he's wrong, and the other guys are like, I have to play with you because.
I think that was another part of it. Was like imagine. I know this is a very tonally different piece of work, but like imagining it from the other side of it, where like he gets this so often, where people say no, it's not me, but it is them. Like trying to get out of the awful situation they're in. That he kind of like, well, I mean, maybe I am wrong, but I mean, actually, I'm still right 99% of the rest of the time. So this is in that respect completely valid. And also, I've got a job to do. Actually.
Yeah.
I can't sit parked outside a school for 4 hours.
Arguing with people.
Arguing with some idiot who
But
won't.
and there's also that really, there's that kind of minor element as well. It's the very fact that he answers the phone at that point, because it's almost like. And it's only because he's expecting someone to ring him to mind him about something else. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't. Otherwise, he's like, I'm too busy doing this thing, and if the phone out, I'll just pick it up later.
Yeah.
But he doesn't, because he's expecting to be minded. So he picks it up, what? Because he's expecting Minder, and it's the different Minder altogether.
Exactly. Like I'll answer this because this is going to be the quickest way to make it go away. So I can get on with it. It's like, what? No. Yes, I know. My council tax payment is late. I will pay it within the next 24 hours. Go away. That kind of thing.
Yeah,
that's what he's anticipating.
Some nonsense that you can just throw away. Just bob off.
Exactly.
Well, that's how great horror happens. Is like grab
Basically, yes.
It is. It's that moment where you make that decision that was the wrong decision.
Yeah.
Answer that telephone. Open that door.
Yeah.
Go and stay in that hotel. Drive down that country lane that you shouldn't drive down. You know, go in that room. You showed me.
Yeah.
Because I mean, most of us when we're watching horror are going, no, don't, no, because we've all seen too much of it. You're going, there are only so many horror tropes. Don't go in that room. Don't open that door. Don't stay in that hotel. Yeah. Don't go in the basement. Never go in the basement or the attic.
Make sure that there's more than one entrance and exit for the same room.
Check the exits. Check all that.
Yeah.
But there's even a don't answer the phone. There's a movie called Don't Answer the Phone. You know this, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So don't answer the phone either. Because I mean, but the point about horror basically is don't. It's just like all horror is based on the word don't.
Like can you isolate yourself from any external situation?
And then
the answer to that is, well, you can't actually.
No, you can't, and even if you could, that would probably end badly as well.
Yes, exactly.
There'd be some unforeseen.
Well, another thing in the program, isn't there, about a chap who is that what Keratina's about actually? What's going on right now?
Well,
where it's a chap who's isolated himself.
Pretty much. It's our. We were pitching it to people as Rear Window for conspiracy theory incels, in that it's this dude and he lives in, without giving too much of it away, it's about a guy who is an online conspiracy theorist nerd. He lives with his mother, and he's very incel-y. He's got this whole thing about women doing this, that, and the other, and he witnesses a murder, or he thinks he witnesses a murder through the back window. And the guy starts to get involved with his mother, the guy who thinks is a killer, who may have killed a prostitute, and he's kind of like, but there's all sorts of stuff going on in the background with like conspiracy theories and aliens and all sorts of stuff that all these kind of elaborate conspiracies that he lives his life by, which are like sort of like David Icke levels of crazy. So it's a fascinating film because it's a character study that gets weirder and darker and more troubling. So in a way it's that, but it's not, because it's his isolation. He's isolated up to a point that he's dealing with.
He basically is like Don Quixote in a way. He's a guy who actually has stepped away so much from reality that he cannot tell reality from fiction.
He's created a different reality for himself and is fighting within it.
Like Don Quixote, basically.
Yeah, absolutely, tilting at windmills.
Like instead of going against the wellman, he's like going against the murderer.
And then I suppose we're talking about, well, this is his conception of the universe and how it works,
yes.
the narrative he puts on it, and then he's actually living through something that doesn't even necessarily need to conflict with those, but it also is so completely different that he's got to come out of that mindset and deal with it.
No, he kind of, the way it is, what happens is it kind of gets incorporated into his own worldview. So you start, reality gets increasingly slippery as it goes along in the film, because you're never quite sure, is this real, is this in his head now?
Yeah.
It's very interesting how it works. It's interesting because it's a very Spanish film. I'm saying this, it's a very, I mean, it is obviously from Spain, and the humour is very Spanish, and the perception of reality is very Spanish. It's quite weird because we've got our Spanish stuff, without even realising we have our double bill of Spanish movies, because we have Caratina, and then we have Coffee Table immediately afterwards, and they couldn't be tonally more different, they really couldn't. But it's weird because they're both sold out. It is good.
But that's one of the great things about horror, is like you can make two completely different films and then it's gonna work. They're gonna still be great horror movies, because horror speaks in more than just one style. It's not just simply being a stock. It's not. You can have the Poe version of horror, which is like let your mind slip you into darkness. Lovecraft and his cosmic horrors. Mary Shelley and Man Playing God with Nature. Bram Stoker and the.
And that's just your archetypes right there. That's not even your more modern stuff. That's literally the main archetypes of horror. Most of which were devised around the same time.
I mean, Scream and Cabin in the Woods are two movies that actually show you how to break the mold in a different, interesting way.
You can reinvent, and you can always. I mean, horror got very meta for a while, very self-deconstructing, which is you can only go so far with it, because if you start to, it's very interesting because you had that whole vogue in the 90s for very self-aware horror movies. Scream,
I think that's a derivation from the comic industry, which also was seeing a lot of revival through that.
Sure, but you have, because you have that really weird thing in the 90s where you end with Blair Witch in 1999, and Blair Witch is an absolute return to basics. Yeah. Literally, in terms of it was being shot on those little handheld. They weren't even HD. They were SD cameras.
That joke was run to the ground. The whole. Oh, okay, we're not gonna do something like, and it becomes a horror witch parallel. They actually did a very good parody of that with Scooby-Doo at one point.
Really? He got to that point?
Yeah, it was actually work.
What happens, the thing with the whole found footage subgenre, which it's one of those things that we still get them a lot, even now. 20 years later, 23 years later, you're still seeing them all the time, thinking, how is that?
I see it.
Because it works.
But it's a very old concept. I mean, we're thinking found footage now, but think it in this way.
Oh,
it's
look,
like
yeah, Cannibal Holocaust is found footage.
Yeah, but think Evil Dead.
Sure.
Evil Dead. It's technically a form of found footage. Instead of like a film, it's a book.
Sure.
You get the horror from a book, so you're basically basically a passing of the.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
passing
you know,
of the
if you
story.
go back, the idea of the film actually being literally some footage that was found goes back at least as far as Cannibal Holocaust.
And that movie was crazy.
Where Diodato, with that one, Diodato actually had to prove that the actors who were in the movie were still alive.
Yeah.
He actually was taken to court and he had to bring the actress in who was on the spike, and he had to show them how they did the spike. Here's the pole, here's the bicycle seat she was sat on, here's the piece of balsa wood she had in her mouth, there's the back brace that she was leaning against. It's that straightforward, you know, can we demonstrate please? And he did. And like, but that was, it was a hoax taken to an extreme level.
Funnily enough, that's how I learned of that movie existed. It was like, this is the only movie where they actually have to bring the people to prove that they actually didn't murder anyone.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, because you can do. I mean, I remember seeing the trailer for Blair Witch when it was first released, and what you got for the trailer for Blair Witch Project was Heather Donahue face. It was the scene. It's the scene where she's in extreme close-up.
It's like a quarter
Shot.
of Heather Donahue.
Well, it's like that. It's that. And it's part of her face. You can see right up her nose. She's got snot running out of her nose. She's in tears, and it's shot on this grainy. It's shot. It's infrared. It's shot on an SD camera, so it's really, really low resolution.
No sound design.
No sound design. Rough sound. Probably, you know, the sound is probably found audio as well.
Yeah.
She's just there in extreme close-up on the screen, and she does that monologue. I want to apologise to Johnny's parents, to Mickey's parents. I can't remember the characters.
People I love.
I want to.
I'm so sorry.
And she says, I'm sorry to my to their parents and to his parents and to mum and dad. And I'm so scared now. I think I'm about to die. And it just goes black, and it's just Blair Witch Project. And everyone in the audience went, "What the fuck was that?" Because we were used to it back then. And I tried to explain the context of this a while ago, because we did when it was the 20th anniversary, we did a screening at Grimmfest of the film, and we were explaining to an audience that a lot of whom were quite young and had grown, you know, they were probably born in the mid '90s and had grown up with the idea of Blair Witch Project. So you have to understand what horror movies looked like in that era, because you had, we were talking before about Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer, and there was all those very, very postmodern, very, very self-referential horror movies, and they were slick, and they were full of big-name actors, and they were very, very well-polished, you know, well-structured.
Production values were going
Yeah,
up.
Productions
Not
were higher and higher and
necessarily-
higher.
It could be effects. It could be just how.
But the production
I mean,
values are really high.
watching